On November 21st in 1989, a police officer in California found a newborn baby in a dumpster. Michael Buelna was on a regular shift investigating another crime when all of a sudden he heard a baby crying. Michael followed the baby's screams and to his astonishment found an abandoned baby in a trash can. 25 years later, the police officer and baby were emotionally reunited. A regular cop. Police officer Michael Buelna was an ordinary cop. He was out on duty working the night shift as he regularly did. That night was particularly chilly, especially for California, and Michael was investigating a stabbing that had taken place in the neighborhood a few days before. However, nothing could prepare him for what was about to come. Officer Buelna was about to have an experience on a shift that he never would have expected. A crying baby. As he was going about his regular duties, Buelna was approached by an extremely distressed people. They ran towards him panicked. Once Buelna got them to calm down, they told him that they could hear a baby's screams. Buelna followed the group of people to a dumpster, and at first he was convinced the sound was a cat, like purring. Nothing could prepare Michael for what was about to happen and what he was about to witness. A weak baby. Officer Buelna approached the dumpster and moved bits of trash out of the way so he could see inside, and what he saw shocked him. As he peered in, he saw a tiny baby, and although he was extremely weak, he was alive. The baby wriggling around was covered in trash and dirt. The tiny baby was also still attached to the umbilical. Buelna was astounded and had to take a minute to collect his thoughts. A strong baby. Buelna knew the baby was still alive, but barely. He decided he had to act now or the child had no chance of survival. He slowly and carefully pulled the baby out of the trash can. He cradled the baby in his arms and was relieved to see the child was breathing, though slower than usual, which made Buelna decide to help the baby by giving him a tiny bit of breath. Immediate medical attention. Even though it was California, it was an extremely cold night, meaning the child needed immediate medical assistance. The baby was totally covered in dirt and hadn't eaten in a while. The situation was severe. Buelna called for an ambulance, which quickly arrived. Once the paramedics arrived, Buelna decided to do something he didn't have to, ride in the ambulance with the baby. He realized he couldn't and didn't want to leave him on his own. Baby Adam. On the way to the hospital, Buelna decided to name the gorgeous baby. From that moment on, the child was Adam. Buelna made sure the birth was documented properly and the baby was given a birth certificate. It was clear the officer and baby had formed a bond over the longevity of their relationship in turmoil. Baby Adam had gone from strength to strength and regained his health. He was ready to find a new home. An adoption. Elizabeth Barton and Daniel Fernandez, a childless couple, decided they wanted to adopt baby Adam. They'd heard of his heartbreaking story and wanted to make him a part of their family. Buelna, however, was devastated. He decided he wanted to adopt the abandoned baby, but since adoption required an enormous amount of paperwork, the officer hadn't managed to organize it on time. Baby Adam became baby Robin, and Buelna had to say his final goodbye. A happy childhood. Once Elizabeth and Daniel took Robin home, they began to raise him in a stable and loving environment. They made the decision to keep the fact he was abandoned and subsequently adopted a secret, believing it would unsettle his childhood and emotional stability. However, Robin grew older and began to ask questions. It was then he finally learned the truth. He'd been abandoned in a dumpster by his birth mother, and his parents were in fact adoptive. Learning the truth. Robin went through his childhood and teen years not knowing what really happened when he was born. However, when he was 24, his adoptive parents decided it was time he learned the truth. They wanted him to know he was adopted in case he wanted to find his birth parents. They didn't want to come between their son and his natural family. Robin was shocked and understandably upset to learn he'd been abandoned in a dumpster. He felt rejected and his adoptive parents were worried. Finding the rescuer. Once Robin's parents told him he'd been abandoned in a dumpster, they also informed him of his rescue. Robin learned of Buelna and how the officer on duty that night saved his life. Robin was touched that a total stranger had taken him to the hospital and not left his side throughout the ordeal. He knew that Officer Buelna had gone beyond the call of duty. There was only one thing left to do, to find his rescuer. What happened to the officer? Buelna never forgot baby Adam. He continued to work in the police force, however, always wondering what happened to the baby he rescued. Buelna often wondered whether he should track the baby down, but decided it was better not to search for the child. After serving in the police force for many years, Officer Buelna retired, enjoying his freedom in the California sunshine. Tracking the officer. It wasn't easy, but Robin, along with his adoptive parents, managed to track down Officer Buelna. They made contact and decided they wanted to meet up. Robin began to prepare himself for the reunion. Although he was excited, he was also extremely apprehensive to meet the person that saved his life. He wondered what he'd say. Buelna was also nervous to meet the baby he'd rescued almost 30 years earlier. An unexpected revelation. Robin and his adoptive parents traveled to Buelna's home in Orange County. Upon meeting, Robin and Buelna embraced each other. The reunion was extremely emotional, both grateful to have found each other again. They both exchanged stories on how their lives had panned out. It was then that Buelna had an astonishing confession. He'd also been abandoned as a child. Both Robin and his adoptive parents were stunned and understood why Buelna had taken so much care of the abandoned baby. A second abandonment. Buelna told them that he and his 4 siblings had been abandoned by their mother. She left them to be raised in foster homes, and it was at this point that Buelna revealed that his own childhood had been difficult, and that one of the reasons he saved Robin, he couldn't leave a child abandoned just as he'd been. Robin was grateful and couldn't thank his savior enough. Both parties were shocked that history had somewhat repeated itself. Exchanging thank yous. Not only was the meeting an opportunity for Robin to meet his savior, but also for Robin's parents to say a proper thank you to Officer Buelna for saving their adoptive son's life and giving them a chance to become parents. They couldn't thank him enough, and the meeting was also very emotional for them as well. However, Robin also had a few things to ask Officer Buelna. He needed his help again. Robin hoped Officer Buelna would agree. The search begins. Robin informed Buelna that although he hadn't met his birth mother, he wanted to forgive her for abandoning him. Robin felt lucky that he was saved and given a wonderful adoptive family and home. He realized his birth mother must have been in an extremely difficult situation. He asked Buelna for his help. He wanted to meet his mother and was also curious to know if he had brothers or sisters. Robin told Buelna that he'd been searching for years for his birth mom. Finding Robin's mother. Officer Buelna agreed to help Robin search for his birth parents. After being in the police force for so many years, Buelna had many more connections, meaning it would be easier for him to start to track Robin's birth parents down. Buelna asked various friends to assist him, and after searching for a few months, Buelna called Robin with good news. He had a couple of potential leads and believed he had information on Robin's real mother. Robin's birth mother. It was at this point that Robin discovered that his birth mother had been troubled throughout her life. She spent considerable time behind bars for attempted murder, which greatly distressed Robin. However, despite this, Robin still wanted to meet her. Her name was Sabrina Diaz, and she abandoned Robin at the tender age of 19. She's subsequently been deported to Mexico after serving jail time. This was extremely difficult for Robin to take in, and he wondered if he'd ever get the chance to meet her. An emotional phone call. Robin got a hold of Diaz's Mexican phone number and decided to call her. The phone conversation was emotional, but finally gave both sides closure, which was important for both Robin and his adoptive parents. Although they've never met in person, it's unknown whether Robin and his birth mother continue to speak. It is likely that's a difficult relationship to maintain on both sides. However, what was to come next would totally shock Robin. Unexpected reunions. After a major news station had reported on the story of Buelna and Robin's reunion after 30 years, someone unexpected was watching, Robin's biological father. He was shocked to see his son on TV since he'd been searching for his son for many years. The search had always run cold, and here was Robin on television. Robin's natural father was called Marcos Meza and had a short relationship with Sabrina Diaz when they were teens. There was just one thing for Meza to do: contacting the news station. Marcos Meza decided to contact the news station that ran the story. He told him he was Robin's biological father and had been searching for his son for years. Meza informed the station that he'd been shocked to see his son on television and really wanted to make contact with his son. It was important for Meza to explain to Robin exactly what had happened all those years ago. The news station was greatly interested and wanted to hear Meza's side of the story. Meza's search. Meza told the news station that he wasn't aware that Sabrina had abandoned their son in a trash can. He only came to know the truth after the police interrogated him once Robin was rescued. Meza was shocked to hear what Sabrina had done, but by the time Robin had already been adopted. For 30 years, Meza wondered what happened to his son and always wanted to find him. It was important for Meza to explain to Robin his side. A new family for Robin. The news station put Meza and Robin in contact with each other. It was then that Meza informed Robin that he had a whole other family. Meza had gone on to have 5 beautiful daughters, which in turn were Robin's biological sisters. Robin was incredibly excited to learn that in a few short moments his family had expanded beyond his wildest dreams. Although Robin had set out in search of his mother, he'd actually been reunited with his father. Meeting his real father. Robin and his father arranged to meet up. The news station assisted and filmed it. Father and son finally got to meet, as well as 2 of 5 sisters. Robin also took his adoptive family with him, which made the reunion a very emotional affair. The 2 families that were now one caught up on life over the past few years. Robin also got to hear his biological father's story and how he'd looked for Robin on many years. What happened to Officer Buelna? Although Officer Buelna was not at the emotional reunion between Robin and Mesa, he was happy to hear it went well. It's heartwarming to know that Buelna and Robin continue to keep in touch. They speak often on the phone and are already organizing the next meetup. Officer Buelna has received a lot of press and attention, but he says he's just happy that he got to save the little baby. Buelna continues enjoying retirement. A happy ending. This heartwarming story has a happy ending. Officer Buelna's in frequent contact with Robin, and Robin has a new family. Officer Buelna also recently told a news outlet that he never expected that nearly 30 years later he'd be able to help Robin again. Today, Robin goes from strength to strength and is building a new life for himself, getting to know his father and his sisters. Robin also stated he never realized his story would pan out like it did, and he's forever grateful to Buelna as well as his own adoptive family.